What's up, travelers? My name is Noctua, and welcome to my training ground. Today, I'm here to teach you about the basics of combat in Genshin Impact. And in this first installment, the Combat Basics Guide, I'll go over your basic combat options, their general effects, and the different types of weapons in the game. So without further delay, let's just go ahead and jump right into the video. Firstly, I should say that what makes Genshin Impact's combat system so deep and unique is its interactions between the different elements and the way different characters' abilities utilize those elements to create different combos and effects. But before we get into how the element system works and individual character abilities and combos between characters, we have to start at basic combat proficiency, which you'll need to understand and become a master of in order to be successful in the game. There are 6 basic combat options at your disposal during combat in Genshin Impact. These 6 options include 3 basic types of weapon attacks, a dodge, and 2 abilities. And these 6 options can manifest differently depending on which character you are playing, what element that character is aligned to, what their role is, what their abilities do, and what weapon that character uses. And today, we're going to broadly cover these concepts as a whole and then talk about the different weapon types and how they affect. So first up, let's start with your 3 basic weapon attacks. And keep in mind that these 3 attacks are different based on your character and their weapon, but we'll cover the differences between weapons a little later in the weapons section of this video. Your first weapon attack ability is going to be what the game refers to as normal attacks, or the community sometimes calls these light attacks or auto attacks, even though they're not automatic, you have to press the button. And so auto attacks doesn't really make any sense, but it kind of carried over from MMOs. Normal attacks are your most basic quick damage. They always manifest in a 3 to 5-ish hit combo that you can perform by repeatedly pressing the normal attack button, which is left click on PC, circle on PS4, or by tapping the normal attack icon on mobile. Normal attacks generally do the least damage per hit out of all of your abilities and are the fastest weapon attack for you to get access to on your weapon. Now next you have charged attacks, also known as heavy attacks. You perform a charged attack by holding down the normal attack button. This is a longer but generally higher damaging per hit weapon attack. And the last out of your 3 weapon skills is an aerial plunge or smash that goes by several names, including plunging attacks, smash attacks, down smashes, whatever you want to call it. If you press the normal attack button while you're airborne, your character will plunge straight to the ground and cause a small area of effect around them. This does damage based on how long the plunge was, what weapon you have, but you should be cautious about plunging from great heights to try and get more damage, as you will take damage from the falling as well, and if you fall too far doing a plunging attack, you even have the possibility of straight up KOing one of your characters from the attack if you, say, don't have full health or something like that. So, outside of your 3 basic attack abilities, next up is your basic dodge. So some players don't realize at first that if you just tap the sprint key, which on PC is either shift or right click, on PS4 it's R1, on mobile you just tap the sprinting icon instead of hold it down, you'll perform a short dash that actually acts as a dodge. If you're unfamiliar with action game mechanics, this dodge starts out with something that we call iframes, in which the I stands for invincibility. This means that for some few frames of animation at the very beginning of the dodge, it will make you completely invincible to all attacks and effects. Without all the technical talk, it can be more easily summed up as dodging at the exact moment you're about to be hit by an attack will make that attack miss you. So mastering your iframe dodges will be important as you start to fight boss enemies later in the game. You'll need to learn when your enemy is about to hit you and dodge right when they're about to, so that you can avoid taking any damage from large attacks. Now your last 2 options in combat come in the form of character abilities. Now, these 2 abilities differ for every character in the game, but they do share some basic characteristics. The first of these is your elemental skill. This is your character's basic elemental attack. It normally comes out very quickly. It does some type of small elemental effect, be that like shielding or just straight damage or healing, and it has a short cooldown before you can use it again. Now, if you're unfamiliar with game terminology, a cooldown is just the amount of time that it takes for a skill to be usable again. These are usually implemented in games for abilities with powerful effects so that you can't just keep using abilities constantly and just steamroll the entire game. Some elemental skills, but not all of them, come with multiple steps or multiple modes of use. For example, the Teyvat Travelers' Palm Vortex ability can be fired off quickly, or it can be held down for a different effect. You can read what each individual ability of your character does on their talent screen, but this video is not for going into depth about different characters, elemental skills, and stuff like that. It's just to tell you about the basic combat, and we'll save in-depth talks for abilities for another time. Otherwise, this video would be 2 hours long. So your second ability is called an Elemental Burst. This is basically your character's ultimate attack. Elemental Bursts generally have very powerful effects, ranging from full healing your entire party, to dishing out massive amounts of damage, or holding like nearly every enemy in the room in one place, like stuff like that. These skills require energy to use, and have a short cooldown period in case you somehow manage to amass all that energy back faster than the developers want you to be able to cast this ability again. So that wraps up all of your basic combat options. So let's talk about some basic combat systems that affect these moves, namely energy and stamina. We'll start with energy, as we just mentioned it when we're talking about elemental bursts. Energy is a resource that your character uses to cast elemental burst abilities. You can gain energy in a number of different ways, and which way you get the energy determines how much energy you're going to get. In the most general sense, you gain energy from damaging and defeating enemies, but the way in which you damage enemies will determine how much energy you'll receive. Basically, you get more energy rewarded for more efficient play or style. Causing elemental reactions or doing really high damage gets you more energy than normal attacks spamming an enemy to death will. The type of energy also matters. You receive certain types of energy based on what element an enemy is already aligned to, if they are aligned to an element, or what element you've maybe afflicted them with based on your abilities. I'm currently doing an in-depth study of exactly how this system functions that I hope to release at a later date, also after I've talked about elements and elemental reactions in the next video after this one. Next up is stamina. Now, stamina is a resource that you burn for many actions in the game, such as climbing, swimming, gliding, and when you do these actions, your stamina slowly depletes, and when it's gone, you won't be able to use those traversal techniques anymore. The same goes for stamina in combat. Sprinting away from attacks, dodging, and using charged attacks all require stamina to perform. This means that you'll have to use these abilities sparingly and with purpose to avoid running out of stamina when you actually need it to dodge a big attack. Stamina regenerates over time, so you just have to watch your stamina bar and be careful that you don't overdo actions that require stamina to perform so that you still have stamina when you need to dodge. Alright, now that we've covered all 6 of your basic combat options, let's talk about weapons and how they affect your weapon skills. Now, if you remember, weapon skills comprise the first 3 of your options. Those are normal attacks, charge attacks, and aerial plunges. Well, there are 5 different weapon types in the game, and each of those weapon types has different properties when a character performs these 3 moves. These 5 weapon types are longswords, claymores, polearms, bows, and catalysts. There are even further small differences between different characters, but with maybe a few exceptions, all of the users of a weapon type perform very similarly and share the same properties. Let's start with longswords. This is your classic one-handed quick sword. As there are currently no smaller melee weapons in the game, this is the faster and lighter of the 2 blades. When normal attacking with the longsword, you perform up to a 5-hit combo. And this combo manifests differently for different characters, as each swordsman in the game uses their own sword style. In all cases, however, the last hit of the full combo deals slightly more damage than the first 4. Longsword charge attacks usually result in some form of a quick flurry of blows after holding down the charge attack button for a short period. This has nearly 100% chance to knock back or throw small, weak targets, and a fairly good chance of slightly staggering larger ones, and it doesn't cost very much stamina. Aerial plunges with longswords don't have any particular special properties compared to other aerial plunges, but in general, all plunge attacks cause a small area of effect around your character and have a chance to stagger or throw smaller enemies and a small chance to stagger larger enemies. Next weapon type is Claymores. This is the greatsword class. These swords are huge, and as such, they are much slower than longswords, but they do more damage per hit. Claymore's normal attacks come out in 4-hit combos, with the final hit dealing slightly more damage than the first 3. This weapon type has a few more special properties than your average longsword does. Its weight and size make it ideal for staggering and breaking hard objects, like geopillars and shields, and a great secondary effect of Claymores is that they are very good for mining and breaking things in the open world as well. Claymore charged attacks are usually some form of constant strikes, the style of which differs based on the character wielding the sword, but it can just be spinning around or a flurry of strikes. These strikes are faster than a normal attack, but require a wind-up time and use stamina very quickly. The aerial plunging attack on a Claymore is virtually identical to a longsword plunging attack. It's barely any different. It's maybe slightly larger. That's kind of hard to tell. Last of the melee weapons in the game are polearms. Now, as of the making of this video, Xiangling is the only polearm user in the entire game. Now, polearm normal attacks strike in a flurry of stabs and quick slashes, but it comes out as a 5-part combo. For Xiangling, that 5-part combo is 1 stab, 1 slash, and then 2 quick stabs, and then a flurry of 4-ish quick hits, and then 1 final slash. This deals sort of in-between damage between longswords and claymores. Polearm's major benefit is that they are both quick and have a longer range than longswords. The charged attack is a straightforward dash attack that is capable of sending small enemies flying and deals moderate damage, with the added bonus of covering a fairly good amount of distance which can get you out of a bad situation. The plunging attack is essentially the same as a longsword or claymore. Alright, next, let's talk about the ranged physical weapon class, which is bows. Bows have the absolute longest range in the game, being able to strike as far away as the player's skill will allow or the render distance can see. A bow's normal attack combo is 5 quick arrow shots that deal low to moderate damage each hit, with the final hit doing slightly more damage than the previous ones. These attacks auto-aim onto an enemy in front of the bow user. You don't have to manually aim them. Now, where the bow class separates itself from the pack is its charged attack. This attack is manually aimed, and it's the only attack in the game capable of striking enemies' weak points. Now, weak point strikes result in a guaranteed critical hit, as well as throwing small enemies like hilly churls, and sometimes staggering larger enemies. This is even able to stop some bosses from doing certain attacks outright. Bow charged attacks can also charge up a blast of the wielder's element onto the arrow, so meaning a pyro user like Amber can charge up and shoot fire arrows, or if you have an electro bow user like Fischl, she can fire electricity infused arrows. This means that you can cause elemental damage on demand, which is quite useful, and we'll talk more about that when I go into how elements in this game work in another video. It also is the only charged attack in the game that doesn't require any stamina to use. The aerial plunge of a bow results in sort of like a volley of arrows falling in a small ring around the character. This doesn't do that much damage, and it doesn't have any special effects compared to other plunge attacks except for the animation. Now, the last weapon type in the game is catalysts. Now, these are objects that allow the wielder to essentially cast magic attacks of their element at a medium range. These attacks also auto-aim onto enemies in front of you, just like bow auto attacks do. The normal attack combo is 4 hits long, and the last hit does slightly more damage than the rest. The main benefit to catalysts is their ability to spread elemental effects on demand. With every single normal attack in its 4-hit combo, you could potentially inflict 4 different enemies with that element. Catalyst charge attacks are normally a small area of effect in front of the character. It deals moderate amount of damage of the elemental damage of the wielder's element. So this also is spreading elements around. And then Catalyst aerial plunging attacks also cause elemental damage of the user's element in a small area of effect around them as well. So Catalysts are perfect for spreading elements around as much as possible. Well, that about wraps up all of your basic combat actions and systems in Genshin Impact and how they work. You can subscribe to my channel for more videos on Genshin Impact in the future, such as the next video on elements and elemental reactions. I was thinking of doing all that in this Combat Basics video, as it is an important part of your combat kit, but I felt like maybe it was too much material for one video. So see you guys next time.